Hello everybody, it's Joshua, and today I'd like to talk about ethics and psychological egoism. And no, I'm not head tripping, and no, I'm not going on a rant here about values and integrity again. This is an interesting concept. It's one that's based in the fact that everything we do is for selfish reasons. And when I read this chapter, it really got me thinking. And I'll try to read it instead of expressing it myself here, but the idea behind it is that when something's done, ultimately it's done for the self-interest of the person. Even if you do something because it makes you feel good, that's self-interest. So I'm not saying I agree with it, I just want to read it and see what other people think about it. And I'll try to be quick and thorough. What is psychological egoism? Although in general, psychological egoism is a theory about what people are like, there's a number of ways we can understand what it asserts. One way to understand it is to say that people are basically selfish. This is what Edna says in the dialogue. The implication of this version is that people usually or always act for their own narrow and short-range interests. However, another formulation of this theory asserts that while people do act for their own self-interests, this self-interest is to be understood more broadly and more long-term. Thus, we might distinguish between acting selfishly and acting in our own interest. On the broader view, there are many things that are in a person's interest. Among them are good health, satisfaction in a career, work, prestige, self-respect, family, and friends. Moreover, if we really wanted to attain these things, we would need to avoid being short-sighted. For example, we'd have to be self-disciplined in diet and lifestyle in order to be healthy. We'd need to plan long-term for a career. And we would need to be concerned about others and not overbearing if we wanted to have and retain friends. Now, this part I highlighted. However, as some have pointed out, we would not actually need to be concerned about others, but only appear to be concerned. Or doing good to others, as Edna suggested, would not be for their sake, but to enable one to call on those friends when they were needed. This would be helping a friend, not for the friend's sake, but for one's own sake. And that's an interesting idea. Like I said, this is just a theory, an idea. But, it really made me think. Okay. Putting the matter in this way also raises another question about how to formulate this theory. Is psychological egoism a theory according to which people always do act in their own best interest, or does it hold that people are always motivated by the desire to attain their own best interest? The first version would be easily refuted, as we notice that people do not always do what is best for them. They eat too much, choose the wrong careers, waste time, and so forth. This may be because they do not have sufficient knowledge to be good judges of what is in their best interest. It may be because of a phenomenon known as weakness of will. For example, I may want to lose weight or get an A in the course, but may not quite be able to get myself to do what I have to do in order to achieve my goal. Philosophers have puzzled over how this can be so, and how to explain it. It is a complex issue, which to treat adequately would take us beyond what we can do here. On the other hand, it may be true that people always do what they think is best for them. This version of psychological egoism, which we address next, asserts that human beings act for the sake of their own best interests. In this version, the idea is not that people sometimes or always do act in their own interests, but that this is the only thing that ultimately does motivate people. Okay, I'm going to read the study and then I'll be done. Not long ago, a study was done in which people were asked whether they believed in or supported the jury system, that people should be proven innocent or guilty by a group of peers. Most responded that they did. However, when asked whether they would serve on a jury if called, many fewer responded positively. Those who answered the two questions differently might have wanted justice for themselves, but were not willing to give it to others. Consider the story related about Abraham Lincoln. It was reported that one day as he was riding in a coach over a bridge, he heard a mother pig squealing. Her piglets had slipped into the water and she could not get them out. Mr. Lincoln supposedly asked the coachman to stop, got out, and rescued the piglets. When his companion cited this as an example of unselfishness, Lincoln responded that it was not for the sake of the pigs that he acted as he did. Rather, it was because he would have no peace later when he recalled the incident if he did not do something about it now. In other words, although it seemed unselfish, his action was quite self-centered. Interesting concept, happens a lot. But for him to admit that, Lincoln was a pretty good man. I'm going to skip past all this stuff. Here we go. Directly aiming at satisfaction may not be the best way to achieve it. We probably have a better chance of being happy if we do not aim at happiness itself, but rather at the things we enjoy doing. I like that. So it goes on to talk about all these different things about, you know, ethical egoism, what is it true, and, okay, pardon me for a moment. Here we go. The moral point of view. Finally, we will consider briefly two issues related to that of ethical egoism that have puzzled philosophers in recent times. One is whether there was a particular point of view that one must take in order to be viewing things morally, and whether this is incompatible with egoism. The other, treated in the following section, is whether there are self-interested reasons to be moral. Okay. Suppose that a person cared for no one but him or herself. Would you consider that person to be a moral person? This is not to ask whether the person was a morally good person, but rather one could think of that person as even operating in the moral realm, so to speak. In other words, the question concerns not whether the person's morality was a good one, but whether she had any morals at all. Suppose, to take an example from W.D. Falk, one wanted to know whether a person had been given a moral education. Someone might answer that she had, because she had been taught not to lie, to treat others kindly, not to drink excess, and to work hard. When asked what reasons she had been given for behaving thus, suppose she responded that she was taught not to lie because if she did, others would not trust her. She was taught to treat others well because then they would treat her well in return. She was taught to work hard because the satisfaction this brought her, or because she would be better able to then support herself. Would you consider her to have been given a moral education? Now this part gets me, and this is the end. Falk thinks not. He suggests that she was given counsels of prudence, not of morality. She was told what she probably should do in order to succeed in certain ways of life. According to Falk, only if she had been taught not to lie because it was wrong to do so, or because others had a right to know the truth, she would have been given moral instruction. Only if she had been taught to treat others well because they deserved to be so treated, or that it would be wrong to do otherwise, would the counsel be a moral one. And similarly, with working hard, if she had been taught that she ought not to waste her talents, or that she ought to contribute to society because it was the right thing to do, the teaching would have been a moral one. In summary, the education would not have been a moral one if it had been egotistically oriented. Do you agree? And it's a big book, so, I sort through it and find various parts that really hit me, but man, that got me really thinking about that. That's why I wanted to read it, was just for that last part. Those of us who have kids, we teach our kids values and morals, but I never considered certain angles, until I really processed them. And when they said that, I thought, okay, it's the same thing you teach your children, be nice. And they say, why? You say, well, because you want people to be nice to you. That's a selfish motivation. I never thought about that. That's a phenomenal idea. If you say do it because it's the right thing to do, that's a moral teaching. Those three things, work hard, not because you can make better money, but because it's the right thing to do to help society. And that's something we can all lead by example, and we can teach it to our children as well, and something for all of us to consider. So it's just a great idea for us to think about why we tell people to do things. And that's why I say children, is because most people are kind of set in their ways when they're older, but when they're younger, they're more, they want to know why to do things. They ask why a lot, and you want to give them a reason that tells them that that's the right thing to do, not because it will gain them something else. You know what I'm saying? Or like, if you do this, you get a popsicle. We've all done that. Peace out.